I've been focusing on transforming myself in the way I am. I've been focusing on not being affected by people. I work at a gas station, and I'm faced with a lot of opportunities to do this. I'm faced with a lot of angry people, a lot of negative, stagnant people who like to complain and make excuses about where they're at in their life. And the type of person I want to be is someone who's compassionate to everyone, no matter how angry they are, no matter how they are. I want to be joyful around everyone. And I want to have clarity outside of my own bias. These are 3 qualities that I've had, but they've been challenged. And my emotions and trauma and resentment and anger that I choose. I've been choosing to be that way. Not always, but I've thought, oh, this is how I am. I have this baggage. I have this shadow side. I have this trauma. And so I've accepted it, which has just been an excuse for me to carry it along with me, the baggage. But recently, I've been letting go of it. And many moments I found that I've been able to completely let go of it. But then I pick it back up. So whenever I say completely let go of it, I mean, I feel liberated in that moment, and I feel so joyful, and like my mood and everything is uplifted. And maybe it's in my head. Maybe I haven't completely let go of this resentment, and maybe I can't. I'm not going to come to any actual conclusions and then just say that I'm the perfect being now that I want to be. But I can't deny that I'm definitely feeling some growth and transformation inside myself. Some shift of how I am and my mood. I've uploaded a video about keeping track of my joy. And, well, actually, the first week, I was more joyful than the last 2 weeks. But I have more joy than I've had a month ago, whenever I wasn't doing this at all, whenever I wasn't putting in as much effort to grow and transform. And many moments on recent days, I feel more joyful. I feel more uplifted and liberated and free from this trauma and resentment and baggage in my mind constantly going and being sporadic and just thinking thought processes that are consuming me. That's starting to dissolve. And some moments it's just gone, and then I feel joyful. And so at my job, I was like this yesterday, and I was like this in a more intense way than I was before, where I inspired by someone who said, don't hold your joy in, don't hold your expressions in, because it's not like money. You can't save your joy in your life if you're not expressing it. They didn't say expressing it necessarily, but basically what they said inspired me and made me think, you know what? I've been standing here stoically checking people out at the gas station like, hi, how's it going? Have a good day. Hi, how's it going? Because I'm scared. I'm staying in my bubble. I don't want to express the joy. I don't want to move forward, because I know that if I go outside of my comfort zone, I'm going to draw attention to the unhappy people, and I'm scared to how they'll react whenever I start being expressing of my joy, and whenever I start being overly, not overly, I'm saying overly because of the context, I'll get to it, whenever I start being joyful and very enthusiastic and happy, just seeming happy. And so I let go of that. I was like, you know what? I'm just giving in to that fully today. Right now, because I was keeping track of my joy, and I was attempting to allow myself to slowly shift into being more joyful. I was thinking, okay, right now I'm about a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 in joy, which is the average. And I've been that way for the past week. And I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to go to an 8? I need to let go of some trauma. I need to just stop thinking about this at all and just naturally be here completely and not overthink every single transaction and person that walks up and every single facial expression they make and mistake that I make. And so I'm going through this and I'm doing all these things and I'm constantly shifting from like a 6.5 to a 7 in joy out of 10. And then I'm like, wait, you know what? I'm holding back. Like, I felt it. I was like, I have the capacity to just be joyful. And before I showed up to work on this day, I was not particularly joyful. It was more like a 5.5 or a 6, maybe even a 5, almost a 4.5, like fluctuating. Like I was moody and being triggered by certain things. And so I showed up to work and I'm starting to shift to a 7, and then I'm thinking, well, what's keeping me from going all the way to a 10? Or, well, actually I'm thinking lower, like 8, because I'm trying to be more realistic. So if I could just be an 8, then that's like the highest number that I've had, pretty much. And so I'm thinking, what's keeping me from doing that? And then I thought, well, I had this fear of going to an 8 and expressing myself and being happier around other people. And I also knew that I didn't have to express myself to be an 8. I could sit here like this. But on the inside, I feel like an 8. I feel very joyful. And so that's where I've been at for like a week, is just trying to be like this, but still on the inside be joyful. And yesterday I decided I'm not keeping it in because of something I heard somebody saying joy is, I forget how they worded it, but if you're not using it, then it's not there. And I think I overthought about it a lot. I'm a bit confused even now. Because sometimes I can sit here just like that and create a joy inside of me, but it's like a bubbling energy, and I want a way to express it. And sometimes I just, instead of expressing it as joy by being very happy to people, like, hey, how's it going, as they walk into the gas station, I'd start doing spiritual things where I'm just thinking about everything. I'm thinking about the deepest sense of life. I'm thinking about how vast this universe is. I'm thinking about how any moment I could die. I'm thinking about the emptiness of this universe, what's beyond what my mind can think. And I'm not even really thinking about it. I'm trying to feel it. I'm trying to be aware beyond my thoughts, but sometimes with my thoughts, sometimes both. And I'm doing certain things also. But on this day, yesterday, I decided to be expressive. I decided to choose, you know what, I'm not going to be stoic. I'm going to completely be enthusiastic, be like, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the local gas station. Hello, hi, like that type of just. Now sometimes my tone of voice goes up like that and it seems almost like fake happy. And so I'm striving to have a soothing, calming, inviting tone of voice but to be completely authentic and to do it with a complete open heart. Like, hi. Hey. Anyway, so I'm doing this, and most people take it very well, and it brightens up their day. As they're walking in, people walk into a gas station, their faces are usually like this. Sometimes that, or usually people's faces are not smiling as they walk into the gas station, unless they're talking to somebody and like socializing in some more shallow way. Like, it's not actual deep joy about just being joyful about life. Very, very rarely you see anyone like that. Maybe once a month I see someone like that. Well, there's one, maybe two people that come into this gas station consistently that are like that, but beyond them, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody else who's authentically been joyful. But what I'm saying is, whenever I'm that way and I'm expressive, people feel that, and it usually uplifts their day. They're like, hey, yeah, hey, I'm doing good. And they change to that from this. So they'll be walking in, I'll be like, hey, they'll be like, hey. And some of them are more like quieter, like, hey, like, because, you know, they're going through pain. They're inside their head. They're thinking whatever thoughts they're thinking that are holding them down and draining their energy. And I even do that, like I was said before, and that's what I'm attempting to be transformed out of, and what I'm attempting to dissolve. But yesterday, a guy came in, and I was very enthusiastic, and it upset him. He's not the only one, but this one particular, we had some dialogue, so it upset him. I could tell by his face, and the other people too, the few handful of people who, they're suffering so much, I imagine, that whenever they see someone very joyful, it makes them angry. I don't know why. I would assume that it's because they either think that I'm lying or poking at them, saying, look at me, I'm so happy and you're not. So they get envious and jealous, thinking, oh, this person's so happy, but I'm not happy. Why is he so happy? He doesn't get to be happy if I'm not happy. Whatever it is, whatever reason, this guy was upset because I was very happy and I was expressing it. And one of my coworkers is more passive about this type of stuff. He's the same way, but he's a little bit more chill, and he actually expresses some joy and stuff. But as soon as this guy walked up, and then he bought stuff, and then I was being expressive, and he's like being quiet and stoic, not reacting at all, and then he left, and then he came back a second time because he wanted to buy something else, and he slams it on the counter. He's like, you're too damn happy. And that, you know, it triggered me, actually. Something about someone who is that way, who doesn't want me to express my happiness. Something about someone who doesn't want me to be joyful and grow. Well, I've experienced that. I don't want to just say it's just because of trauma I've had as a child with family members and certain things at school, but that's a part of it. That's happened. I'm not 100% if that's all of it. I mean, maybe I've just convinced myself I'm that way in my mind, in my deep subconscious, and I haven't fully dissolved that. But whatever it is, it triggered me. And I stayed happy though, like in my expression. And my joy probably went from like an 8 to a 6, or yeah, I'd say a 6, because I was still joyful, but I was starting to feel like some like agitation and frustration and resentment and anger was being boiled up inside of me. And then my coworker says, yeah, why do you gotta lie like that? As if me expressing myself and just be like, hey, hello, like, people don't want to believe that you're actually becoming that joyful, that you're actually transforming yourself. they'd rather think of it as something like, oh, he's just faking it. That's just a face. He's just putting on a fake face and being fake joyful to make us feel bad. Because then it's easier for them to have that excuse. It's easier for them to paint you as a bad guy and them as a victim, or them as someone who's a little bit higher than you on a pedestal, because it makes them feel better about themselves for a second. In those moments, that's the easiest thing for them to do, rather than for them to look at themselves and say, hey, I can grow. Maybe I could be that joyful. Or for them to have compassion for me and be like, wow, this person's joyful, or he's attempting to be joyful. He's creating a joyful vibe inside the gas station. It's funny, my coworker standing next to me didn't have the awareness to see how me being joyful was actually creating a little bit more joy than other people. Well, I don't think he actually cares. He's so focused on his own thing. And as soon as this other customer said something, it gave him an opportunity to say something. So he is miserable in his own way and suffering in his own way. And I know this through his complaining and everything that he does. And so this was an opportunity for him to put me down because it makes him feel better. And what I did was I stayed joyful. And as soon as he said that, the guy, he's like, you're too damn happy. And then I said, there's no limit to happiness, sir. And I changed my tone from, yeah, how's it going, to there's no limit to happiness, sir. So I was affected by him. And I wish, I wish I would have just stayed unaffected and stern, and not stern, well, joyfully stern. But then I went from that tone to, your total is 22, da 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 da. And then I looked them both in the eye. I made sure, like, as if to say, you're not going to change the way that I'm trying to be. And it made my coworker laugh. Pretty sure because he thought it was weird and it made him uncomfortable. And also, I felt agitated and frustrated inside. So it wasn't 100% authentically joyful and compassionate, which is how I'm going to strive to do it in the future. If someone is trying to put me down, me being passively aggressive back at them with a joyful expression is not how I want to be. But neither one of them said anything after that. And then after I said that, the customer was being quiet, and I imagine his anger and resentment was brewing up inside of him. And then the rest of the time I actually lowered my tone and I lowered my expression, because I felt that the happier I got and the more joyful I expressed it, the more enthusiastic I expressed it, the angrier he would get. And they would see it as a way of me poking back at them. Even if I transformed myself, and because in that one moment I was poking at them. I was basically, whenever I said the total in an enthusiastic way, I was basically saying, I'm going to be joyful. There's nothing you can do about it. Here it is. Because I was triggered by the fact that T was pointing at me and saying, you're too damn happy. So then after that, whenever I told him to have a nice day, and I think I told him that something was outside, like I had to say one more thing to him about what he bought. I said it in a lower, more compassionate, like, have a good day, sir. Thank you. I showed him compassion to try to show him that I'm being genuine. Well, you see, I'm not even really thinking about this stuff logically whenever I'm doing it. I'm intuitively just going by emotion and how it affects other people, how it affects me. And so, looking back on it, I said it like that because it was another tactic and strategy for me to use to maybe transform him and show him that whatever he's doing, his anger, his projecting onto me, his envy, resentment, it's not going to affect me. But as he walked away, I thought, well, he might have just thought that he won because he lowered my voice and I reacted to him. So I'm still kind of confused. Not 100% sure what the best thing would have been to do. To just stay enthusiastic, even if it made him get angry, and just not care so much about how it's affecting him. Because then if I'm not being affected by him and I'm just being steady in my ways and that way to everybody, then eventually he'll likely see that, or not, but he likely would have seen that, and then he would have just let go and been like, oh, this isn't about me. Oh, he's not doing this as a personal way to poke at me. But at the same time, changing the way I am and having a more like soothing, quieter, compassionate tone might have worked better on him. So intuitively, sometimes changing the way I react and talk to people in these situations, these social situations, they're all social situations, talking to people. Maybe not all, but what I'm saying is sometimes consciously changing, not compulsively, not in a way where I'm reacting, but consciously changing is a good solution to at least put him at ease. I may not bring joy to his life because he's suffering so much. These people are suffering so much that I may not be able to pull them out, but I can at least make them back off away from me and show them that, hey, what I got going on here is me. What you got going on there is you. You're creating this bubble of suffering. I'm creating a bubble of joy. And maybe just that the thought process and that mentality is what makes them upset, because I'm not trying to think that I'm better than them in any way. And maybe that's what they see as me saying, haha, look, I'm so joyful, I'm better than you. And I create suffering too. And I bet they create joy in their lives also. But not in those moments. And see, I'm just trying to I'm trying to stay humble here. But I have to have clarity and look at reality. And the fact is that they're creating a lot of suffering through their words and mentality. And it's just their general mentality and energy from what I've seen. And I'm consciously trying to do the opposite. And so either staying adamant in that and always being enthusiastic, or sometimes consciously shifting like water to respond to people in the appropriate way, to where maybe I inspire them to see things the way they are, to see how much suffering they're creating that they don't need to create, or I at least am not affected by them. At the bare minimum, at the end of these interactions and at the end of the day, I want to be able to sleep in peace. I want to be able to turn my head away as that guy walks away, and to not be overthinking about it, and to have all these feelings and tenseness inside my body and resentment and anger, like, he said that, I should have said this, we should have said that, at the very least, to not have that. And so I shall continue to spread joy at my job. And likely I will be even more enthusiastic. So much so to where people are going to think I'm crazy. No, I don't want to be too overly expressive, but sometimes I am really happy, and sometimes expressing myself in a very enthusiastic way creates more joy inside of myself. And it makes people feel uncomfortable. Woo! Like that. that thing that I do right there, the woos, that's an expression of joy that I create in the moment beyond the circumstance, beyond my bias. It's just joy being created. Woo! But it's so loud and exuberant, and like people are quiet and trying to block themselves out from life. So whenever I do that, I kind of shake them up a little bit. And whenever I'm doing, I never go woo. Well, no, I did go woo once yesterday at the gas station, and it deflated a lady. It was another interaction where sometimes people walk up and they're stressed out, and they're trying to project it onto you, and they're trying to get a reaction out of you. And I mean, I feel grateful and wonderful about this because I actually accomplished this. This is something I've done very few times in my life, and I've been successful at. Yesterday was a good day. I came out at an 8 out of 10 at the end of the night. So people were not affecting me as much. And even though I was triggered, I was taking that energy and starting to transform it into more joy because I was seeing things with more clarity, and I was still having compassion for these people that at first trigger me and draw out resentment. But I wasn't allowing it to completely kill my joy, even though it hurt it. I brought it down a couple steps in the moment, maybe a minute or two after that, but I brought it back up. And so this lady walked up, and I forget how the conversation went, something about gas or something, but you can see it on their face, on their tone of voice, and the way they look at you, where they're like, $20 on gas pump 2. They're like, see, I didn't even get the tone right, but they'll set it, sometimes they'll slam it down, or they'll just throw it at you, and then they'll look at you with these eyes like they're waiting to see how you react. Like, I just said something in a tone that is obviously rude. Are you gonna react? And then I go, okay, thank you. And then I don't remember what happened exactly, but something messed up. It was like the computer was loading and it was being weird. And whenever that happens, people like to project it onto you, the cashier, and say, well, what did you do? And that's probably because there's some trauma or something going on with them where they don't want to feel like the lesser being, like they did something wrong. A whole bunch of things could be going on there. But basically, it's an opportunity for them to project their anger and resentment and hate onto me. And there's a lot of tension because we're standing there waiting, and it's just loading. And then finally it goes through, and this is the moment whenever they walk away, and I say, have a good day. And at this moment, people who are angry and resentful like to just turn away and not say anything, or just say stuff like, yeah. Whenever I say, have a nice day, they like to say something that is rude to deflate my joy. But I went, woo, it worked. But I didn't do it that loud. I was more like, woo, it worked. And I saw it on her face because she was getting ready to be like turn away and be angry and just hold the resentment in. And then I went, woo, and she was like it was like a surprise, and it just kind of like disrupts that energy inside of her. And then she even, I think she smiled at me and said, you too, and then like left. And it's amazed me actually how many people who my mind was manipulating me and tricking me into thinking like, oh, they're stagnant, they're always going to be these stern, angry, resentful people who never smile and say, you have a good day too. But that was my mind tricking me and me trying to box them in, because, you know, they're unlimited possibilities also. And I found a lot of times whenever I have this energy and I'm enthusiastic, you can't reach everybody, but there's a lot of people that actually are transformed by it too, who instead of just walking away with an angry face, they transformed their face, and they choose to be joyful too because I was joyful. And maybe it's fake, maybe it's only because socially they don't want to seem like a rude person completely to someone who's being genuinely nice. But I'm also sure that there's a certain aspect of they have some love in their heart also, and I triggered that love in their heart. So I'm going to continue to do this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever experienced anybody like this? Or have you ever been someone who's resentful and hateful in any way? I know I have. I still have anger and resentment that I choose to pick up some days. But more days and moments I've been choosing to pick up compassion and joy instead. And I'm not really carrying that around. That actually kind of grows his wings and helps me float around. Instead of carrying the rocks of resentment and joy on my shoulder, I grow wings of compassion and joy. Anyway, leave a comment down below. What do you think? What have you experienced as far as any of this? For the animals! Woo!